Hello,
everybody, and welcome to the War Room. This is for the main event, Marlon Moraes against Cory Sandhagen. Cory Sandhagen, I might say it like that all the way through. I sound like Stewie Griffin. Okay, two words that come to mind when I think of both of these guys. They're both skilled and they're both game. This is going to be an electric main event, and for lots of different reasons. The way that their skill sets interact with one another, the way that they both approach the fight, the way that they turn defense to attack. I mean, this is one of those fights that's just sliding under the radar. And when people see this play out, they're going to be very excited. All right, we're going to start with Marlon Moraes. So let's have a quick look at UFC stats, actually, because this will reinforce what I'm about to say. So Marlon Moraes, 23-6-1. Cory Sandhagen, 12-2. So there's a lot more experience on Marlon Moraes' as side of the record, and it shows in the way that he fights as well. If you go back, I know we've covered him before for when he faced Cejudo on Inside the Octagon. I'm going to pull up a little bit of that in a second. If you go back to the early fights of Marlon Moraes, he was a little bit chaotic. He was a bit wild. He was a bit like, I've got to get after him. Since he's kind of hit 15, 20 fights into his career, he's calmed down and he's got a maturity to his game. You can still see he's champing at the bit to go, but now it's far more measured, and that's why he's in the contenders pool. And Cory Sandhagen not so much, because although I like his style and it's a very different kind of style, it's not. There's an enthusiasm that leads to some minor miscalculations, which they've not cost him fights so far, I would say. But as the opponents get better, like his record is a good example, because he had some submissions and some decisions early in his career, and then he really started to find his striking skills, kind of LFA kind of era. Like he got 4 TKOs back to back, but that brought him into the UFC. But then so he went Austin Arnett, Yuri Alcantara, Mario Bautista, and then he went John Lineker, Rafael Assunção. And, they're good opponents, contenders, is kind of the way it went. And then he hit Sterling, and that was a step too far. So we're kind of seeing him slow in the sand as the levels climbing. And that's where he needs to start taking those minor miscalculations out of his game and tweaking them so he can start having a higher percentage of success. Marlon Moraes, on the other hand, has already got to that stage of his game where he's quite measured. And the openings of the rounds is largely spent. Oh, come on, a pen. The openings of the round is largely spent reading his opponent and testing ranges. He's an orthodox fighter. He does a lot of inside-outside low kicks. He's got good footwork cutting the space down, but he doesn't really leave himself vulnerable. You see how he'll step himself out when he feels like pressure's coming back towards him. Like, he's in and out, and he'll test. Like, it's interesting because obviously he's one of Mark Henry's guys. He's got a very, very Frankie Edgar-esque approach to it. If Frankie Edgar did a bit more Thai boxing, he's got more of a kicking game than Frankie, but his footwork's a bit less boxing than Frankie, which I think suits him for MMA. But you see how he's lowering, he's testing, he's hip feinting, but he's out of the way when strikes are coming in his direction. So what I expect him to do against Sandhagen is exactly this. And the reason he'll have to do that against Sandhagen is because Sandhagen moves so awkwardly. Like, he studies Dominic Cruz, he's a long-range fighter, he's in and out of stance all the time. So I'm just going to pause this here because this is important. So it's going to take him a minute to really understand the range that Sandhagen's trying to play at, because he's going to be in and out of range. His head's going to look like it's in range, and then when Moraes goes to hit it, he's going to be gone. He manages his distance very well. And going back to UFC stats, 5'6" for Marlon Moraes to 5'11" for Cory Sandhagen, 67-inch reach to 70 inches. So, we're looking at inches in advantage for Cory Sandhagen in both ranges. The other thing as well, clearly where it says Marlon Moraes is orthodox, it clearly says Cory Sandhagen switch. Like, there's not a stance that he settles in. There's there's similarities with his footwork and Dominic Cruz, even though Dominic Cruz will have none of it when you listen to commentary. You can see what he's doing. He kind of swings himself into range and back out, and he changes his angles. It's a little bit, to me, it's a little bit less erratic than Dominic Cruz, and it relies a bit more on his head movement than his footwork. But I think it suits him, and I think because of his build and his height, I think he plays those ranges very well. His strike rate is very high as well, and he does cover distance very well. So his footwork allows him to transport himself into range and still hit even if they're moving away. Okay, I'm going to jump back. So Marlon Moraes, he's going to start out measuring. He's not going to overextend himself too much. He's going to start chopping at the legs, because if I've got someone that's moving, I want to beat him up from the ground up. I want to slow them down and flatten their tires. And if I've got someone that's always moving and switching stance, if I can beat one leg up consistently, at least I can perhaps force them to choose a stance, which then makes setting other things a bit easier. So in this little scramble here in the Moraes-Sterling fight, I mean, we're a minute into the fight now. In this scramble, what it feels to me like, and the reason I want to cover this is because it feels to me like there's a clear, right, as they hit the floor, Aljo's up kicking, and then he finds himself with a triangle setup. He switches back for an arm, and then he comes back over. But he's threatening here. He's clamped onto a... Oh, hang on. Oh, I did it again. There we go. He's clamped onto an arm, and he's dragging in. You can see Marlon Moraes is like trying to get out. He doesn't want any of it. So when they go to re-engage, first thing that Sterling does, he level changes, because he already kind of got the vibe that Marlon Moraes wants none of that. I mean, I'm just speculating, but that's what it looks like to me, because, you know, when someone scrambled away and tried to get away from a grappling exchange, like, put it back on them. I've picked out this one, and then we're going to switch over to the Jimmy Rivera fight. Those of you that watch Inside the Octagon will have seen this before, and these two kicks a kick in the knee are so similar, it's weird. So this finish here is Aljamain Sterling moving in to level change, and Marlon Moraes coming across, and we were talking about this the other day when we were doing the kicking on the bag, using a knee shield and bringing your knee across at a 45 to kind of negate that forward rush. That's what we see here from Marlon Moraes, and it's a very Thai boxing thing to do. In a lot of traditional martial arts, the kick will come out and around and it'll snap, and you'll try and hit with the foot like we saw in the aftermath with Randy Costa and Cowboy and Rakic, etc., etc. With Muay Thai, and especially with the body kicks, you don't want to be kicking to the side because they can step across it. They can counter with punches much easier. So as I'm throwing a body kick in a Muay Thai way, I want to be bringing my leg across the body. So if they're moving in, they're still going to hit my shin. The benefit is when, and you'll see it here, is as the kick comes up, it's unfortunate that Aljamain Sterling's moving into it. 1 second. So here we are. So he switches, and it's coming up. That's coming up almost as if it's a kick. But because Aljamain Sterling's level changing onto it, it catches him clean on the chin and knocks him out. And you can see it was a kick, because even after the momentum of the leg stuffed, the extension of the foot still happens for Moraes. You can see it was supposed to be a kick, but it was a clean knockout. And we've got the fencing response, as we've discussed in the past. Switching over to the Jimmy Rivera fight, which was immediately afterwards, the position of them, not only in the octagon, but the position of the leg and the kick and the foot and everything is so weirdly similar. It's a reinforcement of why it's important to throw your body kicks like this a bit more in MMA, I think, at least. Okay, here we go, Jimmy Rivera. And this was quicker, wasn't it? Was this like a minute something? No, 30 seconds. So it's most likely I've got the full thing in front of me. Right, okay. So you're going to see a bit of his footwork here. He did really good work against John Dodson, who obviously is not similar to Cory Sandhagen in the way he's built, but because he moves so much, a priority of Marlon Moraes in that fight was to slow him down. So the low kicks were a big part of his game plan, and I think they have to be here. I'll just let this play through. You can see how he's testing and kind of feeling the range, power inside low kick. Jimmy Rivera is quite stagnant. He uses much more head movement than he does footwork. I mean, he's altering his angles, but he's not moving like Cory Sandhagen does. Beautiful head kick. Right. Just as it's playing through full speed, I'm just going to slow it down so you can see the same thing again. Now, replace Rivera with Aljamain Sterling in your mind, and at this moment, as he's switching, he's level changing. Right. So in this moment here, let me see if my pen works again. Yeah, look at that. We're friends again. So at this point here, Aljamain Sterling's level changed and his head's here. He's taking that knee clean on the button. But because Jimmy Rivera is a bit further out, the full expression of the kick happens and he catches it right across the top of his head. Lovely kick. Reminds me of, here's a history trip for you, Gilbert Ivell, Gary Goodridge. It was like taking the top off a boiled egg with a knife. Right across the side of his head. Folds his head into his far shoulder. Drops him. There ain't no coming back, as they said in The Crow. That was done. He's done. Lovely kick. Really nice. Clean finish. 2 clean finishes. Same technique, different application. One's a knee, one's a kick. So, and I've got this footage somewhere, but I can't find it. There's a particular camera angle that I like to look at, which I can sometimes get a hold of, but I didn't have time. But I'm going to show it you on Inside the Octagon because I've stolen a clip from that. Where are we? Here we go. Here's what I made earlier. Let me just zoom in, get me out of the way. They're the two fights. They're the two fights together. The 2 clips together. So we've got Aljamain Sterling here, who's level. Oh, I can't draw on it, can I? Aljamain Sterling here, who's level changed in to meet the knee, and then we've got Jimmy Rivera on the back, who's not come in, but the extension of the leg is going to take the top off his head. This is his ability to read his opponents and adjust to their range dependent. He's got techniques that work close range, mid range, long range, and just because of the fact that he's not quite as tall as Sandhagen, it doesn't mean he's not going to be able to catch him with some of these kicks. He's very fast with his lead leg. And I think that if he's able to utilize his low kicks to slow down some of this movement, he might be able to catch him leaning. See how he leans over so much. So this was Sandhagen's UFC debut against Austin Arnett, and I tell you what, it was a good job he had a shave that night because I wouldn't be able to tell him apart. I mean, he's like they're pretty much twinsies, aren't they? But look at his movement. Look how he steps through, constantly switching his stance. I mean, let's just follow that through 1 second. And I'll just voice it as it happens. So where are we? Orthodox, southpaw, kick, orthodox. Body shot, lovely body shot. This is a consistency that we're going to see in his game and something that is a benefit to him being taller because he's able to cover a bit more distance with his reach. I never talk as much as I do when we're doing this show. Okay, so movement, loose defense. The debut against Austin Arnett with the body shots and the scrambles in this one as well. So this combination that he's got, it focuses on a nice dig left hook to the body and then a chop low kick. And because he's got a nice whip in the motion, he's able to get power into both of them. And both of these shots are like shots to soften people up. You know, slow them down, soften them up. Body shot, low kick, love it. Forced him to switch his stance. He's a predator in the way that he fights. He cuts people down. He's very good at attacking whatever targets you give him and varying his targets as well. And a very playful way of fighting. Another body shot. It's a very playful way of fighting. So this is a flurry he had in the first round, which looked pretty good. As this fight progressed, it was a second round stoppage, I believe. As the fight progressed, he just had a higher success rate. The thing that I like when I'm watching Sandhagen, though, is that he spends very, very little time defending. I've got a better clip I'm going to show you a bit later on in the show, but look at that body shot there. Properly digs in. Bang. Bang. Lovely body shot. Really leans in and gets under the guard. As soon as he's forced to defend, as soon as he's forced to switch over and think about his own well-being, he immediately figures out to turn it around. Oh, this is the end of the fight here. He immediately figures out to turn it around and get the finish, or at least put pressure on them. And this is going to be useful for him when he starts hitting these higher level guys, because a lot of the time when it gets to the upper echelons, it's about accepting being defeated more than anything. It's about not wanting to scramble. It's about not wanting to throw those extra couple of strikes that might win you the round. He's not a problem with that. He's always going to try and chase that finish. And one of the reasons why he's an exciting addition to this division, especially when it gets closer to the top. And what we've seen from his record is it takes him a bit of time, and then he settles down, then he has some success, and then he hits a bit of a point where he slows down a bit, and then he'll hit another streak of success. And I think that's what we're going to see from him soon. He's coming off his second loss of his career. I just feel like he's got the potential. He's young in the game. He's 14 fights. I feel like he's right at that point where he's ready to, ready to hit that next plateau and realize that he's kind of top 5 in the division. A win over Moraes is not only going to give him that place in the division, but it'll give him that confidence as well. The reason I'm stopping this, just watch this little cheeky right hook he uses to pull him back into range. So he's going to hit him with a body shot. Bang! Hits him with the body shot. Of course, Arnett's going to move away from that shot. So as he starts to move away, he's going to hit him with like a cuffing right hook just to like get back in place. Bang! and that allows him to step across. It stops him in his tracks, and then you see Sandhagen step across him and then goes back to the body again. Oh, and if you look closely, if you look at that closely as that plays through, you can see the reverberation of the punch go through his rib cage. Oh, hang on, let me slow it down for you. Oh, the beauty of combat sports. Oh. There we go. So, where are we? So what we saw in this first fight, in his debut, was really nice striking. What we saw in his next fight against Alcantara was his ability to come from behind under real pressure, his ability to defend submissions, even though most people are like, just get me out of here. Alcantara jumps on him. He attacks his neck immediately, jumps over and gets in this really awkward inverted triangle position with an arm bar, like an extended arm. Now, I want to explain this position as he rolls over because it looks brutal. And what is funny is it's very similar to the position that we were seeing last night. We're recording this way in advance of these fights, so that makes sense. Covins and Woodley happened last night, which is where the bags under my eyes are from. Think back to the Mackenzie Dern Randa Marcus fight. This is a similar circumstance where he's really trying to extend this elbow. Now that obviously to the layman looks fully extended. That looks in a bad position there. But what you've got to bear in mind is that this shoulder is through the legs. So as he's extending and driving up underneath this elbow, what it's actually doing is he's just pulling the shoulder up further through the position. This is why it's important when you're working an arm bar to have this leg coming over the head, so you're controlling that elbow as well, that shoulder as well. That shoulder needs to stay out of the position while the elbow is isolated to get the full extension. That's the reason why this isn't working. Partly because Sandhagen's a lunatic. But I love this toughness, durability here. And he does a bit of a Johnny Bravo off to the side as well. There it is, look. It's like, hey, it's fine, I got it. But he's stuck in a bad position here. Alcantara is trying to chew on this arm best he can. Hits him with a couple of hammer fists. But the way that Sandhagen finishes this round is it's admirable considering what he went through to get there. Because he's struggling here. He's struggling to get clear of this. And it shows flexibility in his arm, but it also shows a willingness to just continue fighting when you're in a bad position. So he ends up getting out of this position. There's a lovely scramble. It takes a few more shots for his trouble, gets out of it, and then puts it on Alcantara for the rest of the round. And look at that. If there's ever an audition for a headless man part, that's it, isn't it? But, very awkward. The spine here kind of is curving that way and then going down. But then the shoulder joint is here and his arm's being fully extended. So although it looks awkward, it's not quite as awkward as it seems, to be honest. The camera angle's making it look very strange. Again, back through with the head. He keeps going back into this triangle position, but he knows that if he allows that arm to come over, that leg to come over the top, that Alcantara is really going to have more leverage on the elbow. So he's choosing the lesser of two poisons here, and then he works his way out in circles. And that's a good 2 minutes of effort from Alcantara, who now, really doesn't have a great deal left. And now he's tired. Now he's thrown everything into that submission, and he had that adrenaline dump because he felt the finish was near. Now he just gets slowly chewed up by Sandhagen, who's got great drifting top game ground and pound, and those long arms are going to come into play here. Like Moraes is great at neck attacks. I think he jumps on the neck and he holding it for 2 minutes, and all of a sudden Sandhagen pops his head out. Then he's on the bottom with fatigued arms while Sandhagen's dinging him up from above. And this is basically the rest of this round. I mean, this is how he finishes this first round. The second round starts. I mean, you can see how tired Alcantara is on the court, on the stool here. So here's the scramble here. We'll just watch this replay because it's always good. I mean, look at the twisting and the torquing of this arm. But he knows where he's vulnerable. And he knows how to stay out of those positions where that arm can be really fully isolated and extended. And then we're into the ground and pound, like I was saying, and he finished that round so strong that when the second round started, Alcantara didn't even look like he was in the fight. Still, doesn't look like he's stable on his legs as he's wobbling. We get an interesting. I just want to point this out to you because he goes down here, takes a few shots, and then remember a little while ago when I was talking about maybe giving the judges ringside a button if they decide that they've seen enough. This fella here, I don't know his name, but this chap here, he's a judge. And if there's a button in front of him, is that the point where he presses it? I think that's enough. Reinforcement for the idea of him having a button to stop the fight. Because that light would have been in his eye line. That might have encouraged him to consider maybe jumping in and stopping. Because nothing else happens here. I mean, this is similar to the Aldo Peter Yan fight where every time he gets prompted to move, he moves, but he's still not moving into a better position. He's moving, but he's still stuck, and like he's responding to the referee, but he's just not got anything left to actually, return an offensive. I mean, I just don't feel like in his position, Alcantara is going to come back. Even Sandhagen's like, whatever. Anyway, the point is he's got good ground and pound. And the reason why this position's working so well, which is really what I want to talk about, is that this arm here, as it disappears behind Alcantara's tricep, he's holding onto the wrist. So he's got a wrist control over the far side. On the other leg, which would be his left leg, I'm not sure whether you can just about see his knee, he's actually slid his knee over the back leg of Alcantara to stop him being able to roll. So it's a very, very... a very controlling position, really good work. I mean, an awareness on the ground for ground and pound and the reach to be able to make it count was the point in that. And I think that Moraes needs to be smart about that if he does find himself attacking necks and various other different types of submissions. He has got excellent submissions, and this is where the maturity of his game comes in. We saw it in the Moraes in the Asuncao fight. So he cracks him with an overhand here and rocks him. Asuncao is notoriously tough and skilled in every range, a difficult individual to deal with. This is remember I was saying the similarities with Frankie Edgar's style. This stacking that we see out of this team is really, it's really useful to force their opponent to feel the pressure, because as they're driving forward, their opponent has to use their legs to hold them off. And at the same time as them driving away with their legs, they're automatically driving themselves into the canvas. So it's a bit of a self-nullifying position. So what we see here, obviously, Asuncao been rocked and he's down, he's hurt, he's got a cut, he's trying to elevate with butterfly hooks, but Moraes is stacking him and he's driving him with his head. So what the options for Asuncao, he's got to try and scramble, and that's exactly what he does. And as he's scrambling, he's going to make his neck vulnerable because none of the butterfly hooks are working. He's not been able to attack an arm or isolate or do anything valuable with his guard, because Moraes is doing such a good job of staying central and stacking him and driving into him. And then we see him scramble and he turns to his knees, and that's the mistake. He's shrimping out, but then he gets folded into the fence, and this has been a narrative. Go and watch the aftermath for Covington Woodley. This is where the patience of Marlon Moraes shows a bit more in his game. If you go back to 10 fights into his career, he would have already a jump guard at this point on this guillotine. But what he actually does is he grabs the guillotine and then he walks Asuncao into the fence. See how he drives him into the fence there to really force the point of that guillotine to make sure he's got that arm under the neck. You can't see it very well from this angle, but you get the impression. Drives him into the fence, and then he sits to his guard when he knows he's properly got that grip. And we see the same play with the fence and with the legs being tangled up. Takes that top position and then forces the tap from a Sun Sao. That's a first round attack in a 5-round fight. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that he's attacking the neck because he got the finish and obviously he got the victory. But if that didn't work, that's a first round attack that's going to drain your arms for another 4 rounds to go. That's what I'm talking about with Cory Sandhagen, who might not necessarily be interested in attacking the submission, but he'll certainly beat you up on the ground in any position he can. And that's where decision making needs to be smart on the side of Moraes, because if I'm him, I'm softening Sandhagen up and slowing him down to make those scrambles a bit less threatening. We're going to switch over to Sandhagen in a second, and we're going to finish it there. Lovely right hand over the top, drops a Sun Sao. Look at that, clean, and then sets it up again, nice. Didn't quite land it clean on that second one, kind of inside the guard. So watch this scramble. Scrambles up, drives him into the fence. Look at that. Look at the space. So a Sun Sao is elevated with his butterfly hooks, and then he's going to get his hips away, and he's going to be driven into the fence. Stack, falls back. Leg goes over the top, and then he follows him and stays hooked. Look at that. Watch the right leg. Watch this leg here. Over his back, rolls with him and hooks the leg, drops down, hooks the leg, and allows him to pull himself over to top position, stays clamped on, and then he's pushing off the fence to drive himself into mount. Lovely work. Again, like I was talking about in Aftermath, it's that awareness of what's going on with the lower body without them really having to think about it. Because I guarantee you at this point, Moraes is thinking about the arms and the neck. He's thinking about a Sun Sao's neck and how tight he's got this grip. They're the moments where he could probably catch Sandhagen if Sandhagen's a bit reckless and a bit scrambly. In this fight against Batista, he gets a lovely knockdown with a flying knee. The reason I'm throwing this one in is because I also want to establish how dangerous potentially Sandhagen is on the floor, especially if he's having success with landing his shots, with beating Moraes up from a distance. If Moraes is struggling to get a good read on him, or at least if he's been on top position, he's landed a bunch of punches. This little scramble here is what I was talking about with him turning defensive situations into attacks, because Batista does a good job of getting back to his feet here and driving in to try and get a takedown. And you kind of see Sandhagen accept the position that he's in and get slammed because he's already set up to attack when he lands. So he goes over to the fence. He's pushing on the hands here. He's trying to break this grip, but he doesn't. He creates enough space to get the Kimura trap. Now, he knows full well that as soon as Batista switches to this grip here, he's going to be able to get his hips in, his hips come in, and then he's able to elevate him with all of his strength. When he was spread, he wasn't going to be able to get underneath him and elevate him like this. But with this position here, he's able to get his hips in and lift him. But what we're not seeing from this angle is that Cory Sandhagen has already got a Kimura trap on Batista's right arm. So as he's going down, he knows full well he's going to the floor here, and this is his option to hold on. He's going to tuck his head underneath because he knows he's going down. Head goes underneath. Look, he's looking at the lighting rig as he's going down. And then he lands, and he's immediately into an attacking position. It's obviously not an ideal situation to happen, but he goes straight into an inverted triangle. And there's a bit of a flurry here of attacks. Think about what I'm saying, though. He's attacking here. He's attacking. He's in bottom position. He's in a bad position, but he's the one that's forcing his opponent to react. So Batista's now he's going to get swept over, and he's going to be able to take top position. But the attack continues. Okay, he's attacking. Then Batista's going to get out. And he's in a defensive mode here for just a moment, and then he's going to switch immediately back to attack. Straight onto the Kimura, and he's on again. And he's attacking, and he comes straight over. And now he's in a position where he can start attacking that Kimura from top position. This is the point where he gets a bit reckless. And this Sandhagen in 5-10 fights, depending on who he fights, 5 fights time, he doesn't rush this position. He holds it and he waits until it's the right time to sit off. Unfortunately for him in this one, Batista's not Marlon Moraes. Otherwise, he wouldn't have got this armbar at all. But fortunately for him, he's still able to keep control of it. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So he sits off here. And really what he wanted, this knee that's on the floor, he really wanted this over the head already. Because sitting to his back here, the momentum of Sandhagen sitting down in this direction is going to drag his opponent up at the same time. So there's an offset to that momentum, and the leg coming over the head is what, as you sit back with the arm, you kick that leg free to force your opponent back down to the mat. So they stay on their back, even though you're sitting off with the arm. And you'll see what happens here. As he sits off, he's not quick enough with this leg, and Batista's is coming up on top. And he's able to recover it. He does a great job of recovering it, crosses the legs, and then fully extends his hips as he twists. Really nice finish. No criticism on the finish, aside from the fact that he probably didn't have to make it that complex had he have taken a millisecond of extra control here and there. That's the point of difference here, and that's reflected in their records. 23, 6-1 for Moraes, 12-2 for Sandhagen. Higher level opposition, more experience, training partners of various different skill sets and levels. And I mean, obviously, you got Marlon Moraes. I would imagine that he's training with Zabit, and the way that Zabit moves, I'm sure he could echo Cory Sandhagen a little bit. But anyway, there's lots of facets playing out on both sides. I fully expect Marlon Moraes to start quite patient, orthodox stance, chipping away at the legs and moving and testing, trying not to get caught on the end of those things for the first round. And then we'll see him start to set up his other kicks. If his Muay Thai game is not working, I think we're going to start seeing scrambles. I think Marlon Moraes will chase takedowns, and he will try and force submissions. When it comes to takedown accuracy, for Moraes, it's not very high. It's 25%. But that's mostly because he pressures people into attacking him. He's got a 66% takedown offense. Cory Sandhagen's a 33% takedown offense. But if you're jumping on Kimuras instead of defending takedowns, of course it's going to affect that stat. So I'm sure I've talked your ear off right now. What have I forgotten? I think that's it, to be honest. Moraes is going to move and use his low kicks. Like he did against Dodson. He's going to try and pick him off at long range and not get overexposed. Sandhagen's got really weird movement. He's going to be in and out. He's going to be stinging in with long range, using his head as bait and kind of drifting in and out with his footwork. He's got good work to the body, good low kicks and good scrambles, good sub-defense that we saw against Alcantara. Moraes will jump on a guillotine. That might be the right thing to do. It might not. But the fact that he's a veteran educates his decision in those moments as to whether it's the right thing to do or not. Sandhagen's fun on the floor as well. He's got lots of different attacks in his game, but he does get a little overzealous and maybe jump on things a bit early, which might cost him against a veteran like Marlon Moraes. Oh, it's going to be a fun one, this. I'm looking forward to being Octagon side. Enjoy the fights. See you next time.